From the FISA investigation to executive power and beyond. I've got tons of headlines for you here, folks. So stick with me. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and before I start, I've got two messages to a couple people from the comments. One, Mike Church, if you hear this, I have been answering you all the time. Every time you ask a question, I've answered you. So if you're not seeing my comments, I don't know what to tell you, okay? Sometimes I miss comments because they come up and I'm just too tired to deal with them all, and then I get a whole big bunch and I just don't keep scrolling back to answer them. So sometimes I miss out, but for the most part, I really do try to respond to people. So if you're not getting my responses, I don't know what to say because I really have responded to you. So, and the other one is Richard from the comments. I'm going to tell you right up, I'm going to probably babble on this a little bit and give my opinion. So you might not want to watch this one because I know that's not your taste. Anyway, so let's get going, folks. I got those out of the way. I just had to say it. Anyway, let's start with this one because we've got Lindsey Graham has started interviewing witnesses. Yeah, folks, he already has started the depositions because there's just going to be a lot of them, and they're doing it behind closed doors because some of the stuff is sensitive and classified, and they can do that behind closed doors, but they can't do it in public. Besides, when it's behind closed doors like this as a deposition, it has a lot more order to it, and you're not seeing the big circus that goes on with the Democrats trying to get their little sound bites in. And it really is a lot better when they do it that way. It will make more sense, but then we don't get to see it until they release the transcript. So hopefully that will happen. But anyway, so yes, this has started, and he had 17 different people that he wanted to see. We already talked about that in a previous video. And so he has the depositions going. So I think that's a great move. All right. And as always, I'm going to put all these links down below so you guys can find them. Remember, it's in the description. Okay. So make sure you pop open that description and you find them in there. All right. So let's go on. This one is from Senator Rand Paul, and he said, just got back from the White House. There was a meeting with him and some of the members of Congress, the Republicans, and also, I can't remember who all it was, DOJ, and I don't know. I saw the list of who all it was. It was several different people, and they had this meeting about the FISA reform. And so President Trump made it abundantly clear that he will not accept a clean reauthorization of the Patriot Act without significant FISA reform. I agree with him. And that's the consensus. So if the House members do not pass some kind of reform for this, and it goes on, Trump won't sign it. So it is dead in the water if they don't do that. And the problem was with Jerry Nadler that he was supposed to, as the chairman of the judiciary, he was supposed to have a hearing where they worked on this. But oh no, they didn't want to have the markup on this. They instead did something totally unrelated, and pretty much it's back at Trump. We're trying to take him down. So yeah, that is a very positive sign there too. Then we have this one. Divided Supreme Court takes on executive power and limits of independent federal agency authority. Now, I told you about this a long time ago. We've discussed it before in previous court cases and stuff. The deal is, when the Constitution set up the powers, it has 3 branches, okay? And the executive branch has kind of been hijacked over the years because now we have all of these federal agencies that are under the executive branch, but they are not under the president's power. He can't fire people from them for any reason. He has to go through all kinds of rigmarole to get there, and some of them he's not allowed to fire. And this can be very dangerous. And the one that it's specifically talking about here is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created, in the 2008 recession and mortgage crisis and all that. So It's been around for just a little while, but the deal with it is the person who is appointed there really has unchecked powers. You know, our government is based on checks and balances. There's no check on this person, really. This one individual has power to make all these decisions, and nobody can say no to them, and nobody's keeping an eye on what they're doing. And so it's not just there, but there are several other agencies within the executive branch that the president doesn't really have power over. But the problem is our Constitution says the president has the sole power over our entire executive branch. And so there's this real issue, and I told you it was going to get to the Supreme Court eventually. So it is heading there. It is going to be a fight, that's for sure. But I thought it was really interesting because it said a ruling from the High Court could affect the authority of dozens of other federal agencies with quasi-independent status, like the Federal Reserve and the Social Security Administration. Imagine this, folks. What if Trump takes over direct control of the Federal Reserve? You think you're going to see some changes? Remember, the 17th letter of the alphabet said there were going to be some restructuring there. I think that's a very distinct possibility because those types of agencies really are not checked, and that is a huge problem. And when you go down here and you see the two different points of view on it, this is very modest restraint of executive power, said Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It stops the president from, at whim, removing someone. It's the executive branch. He is the sole head of the executive branch. It's a unitary executive power. Replacing someone with someone who is loyal to the president, you know, I just can't understand this whole complaint. That's all Obama did was put in his loyal people in there who would do anything he said without question. And why are they complaining about it now with Trump? Because that's really not what's happening. I mean, he's got people in there who will tell him they, have different opinions from him. And it's okay. You don't want a bunch of yes people around you. Well, Obama did. But anyway, then it goes on, loyal to the president rather than to the consumers that the Bureau is set up to serve. This Bureau, we'll talk about it in just a minute here, but Kavanaugh's point of view, of course, is just how this will play out if you were to win. It's really the next president who's going to face the issue because the head of this agency will go at least 3 or 4 years into the next president's term. And the next president might have a completely different conception of consumer financial regulatory issues, yet will be able to do nothing about it, he told the attorney defending the agency's authority. How do we deal with that real-world consequence that seems different and troubling? See, if it were a Democrat in office, they wouldn't be saying a word about it. Obama would have just been able to do it. But anyway, let's look at this organization. I just wanted to point out what it does because, frankly, I hadn't heard of it. So, there's a lot of these that I haven't heard of. But I'm learning, and it's always good to learn. And so this Consumer Financial Protection Bureau jurisdiction includes banks, credit unions, security firms, payday lenders, mortgage servicing operations, foreclosure relief services, debt collectors, and other financial companies operating in the United States. Yeah, what could go wrong having just one person in charge of all that with no checks or balances on them? Yeah. Oh. So, anyway, I'll leave all the links down below. You can read the whole thing. This one I thought was kind of interesting. Evidently, 15 counties experiencing problems with computers connecting to California voter database. So, yeah, they were supposed to be able to have them all set up by Tuesday, which is when I'm recording this. And, it didn't work out. So they had a lot of problems, and they evidently made people cast ballots and the provisional ballots. I don't know. The thing was, the problem meant there was no way to update registration records or show that a citizen had voted. Again, what kind of problem could there possibly be with that? I don't see how they could misuse it. This is California. So Yeah, very interesting. Who knows what's going to go on there. Something's got to change, though. Anyway, and then we go to this one. Buttigieg endorsed Biden after reportedly speaking with Obama. Yeah, Obama's been silent. But here's the deal, folks. And this is what, it's my opinion on it. But what I think the deal is that the Democrat Party saw that the only person who was really going to win was Bernie. And they sure didn't want Bernie in there because although all of their policies are totally in line with Bernie's socialism, they want to stay away from the stigma of the word socialism. So they don't want people to know that they're socialists. They're trying to put it, market themselves as more of the popular and mainstream, this is what America wants. We're progressive. See, they don't even use the word socialism. They use progressive. It's the same thing. They both mean the same thing. They're headed to the same goals. Anyway, so I think what has happened is the Democrat Party decided, we're in trouble here, folks. So we've got to restructure this. So, Buttigieg was not very high up, and neither was Klobuchar. And so I think what they probably did is Obama goes, hey guys, you got to pull out and you're going to put your votes towards Joe. And then, of course, Beto came out today, too. Like I said, when I'm recording this on Tuesday, Beto came out and supports Joe, too. Who cares, Beto? You are no longer relevant. Go hide again. Go eat some more dirt. So anyway, this is the situation. I think they're doing this because they definitely cannot have Bernie in there. Now, I don't know how they're going to play it out, but Bernie will not get the nomination. I'm almost positive. They will do something about that. And so, speaking of Democrats, I'm going to actually jump ahead. I should have put this in the right place, but I didn't. Donna Brazile was on this Fox show, and they were interviewing, the GOP chairwoman here. And Donna got a little ticked at her because she was saying how the Democrats should run things. No, she was just saying how they do, which is insanity. They sit there and they say everybody's vote should count. But then they come up with this really convoluted way of counting votes. So people's votes really don't count. And then they have all these superdelegates sitting there in the back just waiting to be used when they need them. And that's what's going to keep Bernie from getting in there. Because I'm pretty sure they're going to have all those superdelegates put their votes toward Joe. But Joe's got a problem, because Ukraine is getting closer all the time to him. Okay, so let's go back. Anyway, next one. 19 states sue Trump administration over reallocating funding for border wall. Yes, they're still at it. And the thing is with the illness that shall not be spoken, you can't defend this position anymore because it needs to be closed. If you don't close it, you're going to have a bunch of people with the illness that shall not be spoken coming over the border. So it's just, it is totally their procedure, their method. This is how they planned on trying to take Trump down. And if you remember, long time ago, several times, I have mentioned that document by David Brock's group, Media Matters, because it says specifically in there that there will be continuous attacks on Trump like this. Continuous. All the time. So, there you have that one. And then, this was interesting. This is Martha MacCallum, because remember, on Thursday night, President Trump's going to participate in a Fox News town hall. But they've been having town halls with all of the different candidates, so I guess he gets his time too. And so she asked for questions. Well, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit and show you what all the questions are, because they all seem to deal with, certain letter of the alphabet. So it's just kind of funny. I mean, it's not just one, folks. It is a whole bunch of them. There's just all kinds. I mean, look at this. They're everywhere. So, it's like in Egypt, the plague of the frogs. So yeah, the frogs are at it here. I mean, there's a few that aren't, but this is kind of froggish. So, you've got all of these. Ask him. I don't really want them to ask that question, who is. I want them to ask what he thinks of the movement, because I think that would be a better way of saying it. Because anyway, it goes down, and this is what everybody's asking about. I mean, this is crazy. She has to see this, or at least her people do, because there's barely any other question listed here. This is the same question. I mean, there are a few. I mean, this is a good question. Why in God's name does China produce our medicines? I thought that was a good question. So there are some good questions, but yeah, the majority of them have to do with that 17th letter of the alphabet that just keeps going. There was a poll somewhere along here. I don't know where it was. I don't know. I'm not getting to it, so I don't know. But, yeah, it had, what question do you want her to ask? And it was, like, very overwhelmingly that question. So, ask him why he would fire a man like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, an American hero that left blood on the battlefield. Yeah, I mean, really? Why ask him? Well, he'll tell you the guy was a traitor. I mean, oh gosh. And I think there are some legitimate questions, but very few of them. I mean, very, very few. They keep going. And like I said, there's just so many of them because, yeah, would you consider auditing the Fed? Oh, I don't think he's going to audit it. I think he's going to take control of it. That seems to be where it's headed. So here's the poll. Here we go. 95% of the people. And there were 6,000 votes when I took it. 6,410 votes. And 95% of them said that. So as I said, it's not just one person. It's a lot. And we are not Russian bots. Anyway, then there's this one. Folks, this is your answer to when people are whining about the illness that shall not be named. You just mentioned this, because guess where he donated his quarterly salary? Yeah, to HHS. So, that's where it went. And this is, I forget, somebody had actually the check and everything. But yeah, he donates all of his salaries. And for those who don't know, he does. I think he might have to keep $1. I think they said that. I don't know if they changed that or not. But at first, that's what they told him, that he had to at least take $1. But other than that, no, he puts them all to some kind of charity. Well, this particular one, he's going to be fighting the illness that cannot be named. So I think that's pretty good. Well, and speaking of the illness that cannot be named, guess what? We caught a good old mini mic here. I'm going to turn off the sound. There's really no sound on this one. And put it back here. Let you watch it. I guess it's pizza or something. I don't know. And the thing is, okay, so he takes part of it and puts the rest back in, and then he licks his fingers and everything. It's like, hey, I don't want to eat out of that now. And Trump did make a comment on it. He retweeted it and said something like, you shouldn't be licking your fingers. So this one has absolutely nothing to do with politics, but I thought you would be interested to see it because I know a lot of you are very music oriented. Check this out. This guy used an algorithm to generate every possible melody to prevent copyright lawsuits. So he went through and he made up all these songs. I mean, it generated all of these different melodies, and then he copyrighted them all and he released them into the public domain. So I don't know what ramifications that's going to have in the music industry. I think it's kind of interesting on that, but yeah, it says that it's capable of generating 300,000 melodies each second, creating a catalog of 68 billion 8-note melodies. Can you imagine? So, I don't know. That just seemed really interesting. I wanted to let you know about that. I'll put the link down below. You can read the whole article. I thought it was kind of fascinating. All right, and speaking of odd things that happen, well, it seems like Nancy Pelosi had some security issues here because her people were targeting some of the peaceful protesters that were pro-Trump. And somebody took the photo of them, pointing at them. So it just, yeah, that's not cool. And this guy right here said he attended the protest, said you can clearly see he's pointing the weapon at us. This is why they want complete and total disarmament of the civilian population. So I thought that was very interesting. This was in New Jersey that this took place. So yeah, could be aggravated assault at minimum. So yeah, that was really, really weird there. Anyway, then we have other people who are showing their anti-Trump bias. Here was this lady. I'm going to show you that one first. This was a post that she made. For the record, if I do get the illness that shall not be named, I'm attending every MAGA rally I can. I mean, think about that. How sick are you? That was in response to this one that said that briefing was strange for how much every person had to compliment Trump. Weird, weird, weird. Much respect to the CDC rep who didn't and kept it real. The reason they were complimenting Trump is because he's doing a fabulous job in keeping this in check. That's why. Well, anyway, so this person, this Susan Daniel, posted that, and check it out. Notice that it says she's a humanitarian. Well, that sounds very humanitarian of her, doesn't it? But she wasn't the only one, actually. There were a lot others that were pointing it out, and this one pointed out her humanitarian thing. But look at this one. Me too, and I'm booking a night at each one of the Trump's USA-based hotels and swinging by for a visit at his spa at Doral. I mean, how could you want to do that? That's just demented. Well, not only that, but this lady retweeted it and put solidarity and yes. So this is a councilwoman, okay? She's Denver District 9 City Councilwoman. Social worker. Yes, that's the kind of social worker you want working for you, right? Oh, man. But anyway, then she was asked by the Colorado GOP. They called on her to resign over that particular post of hers. And here's the little statement from the Colorado GOP. And they said, Councilwoman C. DeBaca praising a social media post calling for Trump supporters to be infected is simply disgusting. There can be no room in our politics for wishing harm on Americans who have different political beliefs. Democrats in Colorado and across the country need to condemn this evil statement. In light of these comments, the Colorado Republican Party is calling on her to resign immediately. So, yeah, not good that it's going to do any good because she probably won't. But then I wanted to show you this. Look, little researchers in training. This is on, they dressed them up this way for Leap Day. And, of course, everybody that saw it had to point that out. There's a lot of kicks in this. So, again, it's a good thread to look at, especially if you follow the 17th letter of the alphabet. I just thought it was funny. Look at them. Aren't they cute? Oh. So, I should crochet things like that. That would be really fun. And then we get to this one, which, let me see. Yeah, this is my last one. I have so many tabs open. But unlike Brit Hume, I don't show you my tabs. Oh, and if you didn't see that, Brit Hume had a tab open that was something like, what, sexy vinyl vixens or something like that. Oh, my goodness. It was all over Twitter earlier today. So anyway, this one I think is a really good move too. Barr taking over antitrust probes of Silicon Valley tech companies. And the thing is, he knows what he's talking about because check this out. Okay. Let me find it. Here, he's a former attorney for Time Warner and Verizon, dealt with antitrust issues in that capacity, a fact that critics of Silicon Valley have said gives them more faith in him despite the increased pressure on the companies. The DOJ is considering reforming a federal law that protects online companies from being held to account over user-generated content, although companies can still be held liable for content that breaks criminal or intellectual property laws. Okay, so the deal is, and you've heard me talk about this before, just in case you haven't, let me give you a recap. There is the thing called Section 230 that allows many of these companies, it was put into effect back in the 90s, the late 90s, because they knew that they had to have some kind of law regulating these companies like Google, or at the time it was more like Yahoo, that was a big one, that at the time had the biggest chat room structure out there. And then you had forum boards and everything else, and they wanted to support free speech, but they also wanted to make sure that these companies were not held liable for things that the people on their platform said. So the platform part of it, that's what Section 230 set up. And so it gave them some special consideration because they could not be sued then for what people put on their platform. The thing is, the opposite of that then are publishers, where like a book company, if a book company publishes something, then they can be sued for the content in that book. All right. And so there was this big contrast. Well, the thing is, these big tech companies want to be both. They want to be a platform and a publisher. Now, there was this really stupid decision that was made by some court in the Ninth Circuit Court, I think it was, for PragerU, which has been going through this because they have been severely restricted in their videos. If you've ever seen PragerU videos, you know they are good, clean content that anybody could watch, and there's no reason why schools should not use them or anything else. But because YouTube has limited those videos, they've restricted them with age restrictions, that blocks out most schools and like churches and places like that. So a lot of people cannot see those videos because they are age restricted. You cannot see them either unless you're logged in. You have to actually be logged into YouTube to see them. So this restriction is a very big deal, and it's restricting their First Amendment rights. Well, the court ruled that yes, YouTube could do that. So it's still, I'm sure, going to be appealed, and I think it will probably end up in the Supreme Court eventually. But there's no reason why their videos should have been restricted, and yet they were. So it was a definite, censoring move. So things are coming to a head. But anyway, I thought it was really interesting that he had experience in this. It's a little concerning for me that he was with Time Warner. But, it does make sure that he knows what he's talking about with it. So I think maybe this is something that he's going to focus on. And I think he probably will do something about it, but I don't know exactly what the solution is. There have been talks. I read an article the other day about, trying to get them to, break them up. And it's just not really feasible. If you have something going on where, they're definitely breaking some antitrust things, then you can break them up if it's within the first year or so after the merger. But after several years, which it has been for most of these, it does get very messy and things are all mixed together, and it would be really hard. It's kind of like taking a glass of water and taking a glass of, punch or something, and mixing them together and then trying to separate out all the punch into one glass and all the water into the other glass. It's going to be near on impossible to do that. So I think probably he's going to be working on what they can do, some solutions probably that they can change some behavior that will allow for more competition, I guess. At least that's what I've gleaned from it. So anyway, that's a lot of things there. If you want to dig into a few things yourself, lots of different topics that you could read on. All the links will be down below in the description, just like I usually put them. Remember, you have to pop open that description to get to them. And so that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.